Welcome to Heart Powered Conversations. Today, my guest is Jen Boffey. She is an adult chair coach who helps overwhelmed, frustrated adults and teens become their healthiest, happiest, and most authentic selves by actively managing thoughts, beliefs, and ultimately all aspects of their lives. She guides her clients towards balance and inner peace. Welcome, Jen. I am so glad to have you here. I've been so excited to have this conversation. I
Thank
like
you. Absolutely.
I usually like to start by asking my guests, since this is a heart power conversation, what does it mean to you to live a life powered by the heart? How has it been manifesting in your life as a human and as a mother? Because you're a mother of two beautiful, almost adult kid. Three. Oh my goodness, three. Okay, three beautiful almost adult, right? We can grown up girls. And I think you are a beautiful example of heart-powered parenting and with so much grace, so much wisdom to share. So yeah, I'd love for you to start us off with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a lot there, right? To dive into. But to me, heart-powered living really means that you're making your choices and decisions of how to show up from your true inside self, right? Like, not the things that are put upon you or the way that you're worried about being perceived, but like that alignment within yourself, knowing what is best for the situation. And specifically within parenting, there's a lot of things that can jump up in the way that will influence our decisions and how we show up, whether it's our own stuff that we don't quite realize we're bringing to the table, whether it's the way that we think we're supposed to do things, perceived on, society or the play groups or, the neighborhood things. And it's not even in a negative way, right? Like we're biologically wired to be in tribes, that's part of our DNA. So this sense of wanting to belong and be accepted is really strong. And I think to keep that in balance with the way that we show up and for ourselves, and again specifically for our kids, and looking at who they are, what their strengths are, what their challenges, and addressing those at the foremost, and having that at the beginning of our decisions, not the hoping that it falls in line with them.
I love that. I was seeing almost like a compass where you have that true north so strong, and your true north is not swayed by the magnetic pull of any outside influence or interference. Ah, and
Yeah.
you help others attune themselves to the true north. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I had a great childhood, right? Like I had this wonderful existence in life. I remember on my kindergarten report card, the teacher wrote, Jennifer is very conscientious. And I had no idea what that word meant. And I remember asking and being told, it's like, well, you think about what you say, you think about what you do, and you take your time and intention with it. And I remember thinking, well, is that good or bad, right? Like, is that a compliment, or was that meaning I was too serious for kindergarten? I had no idea the foreshadowing that that kind of meant for me in my life, but it came back to me yesterday, actually. So yeah, I paid attention. I was observant. I knew what was expected, what would get me praise, what would be successful. So I followed the rules, right? I knew what to do, where to go, how to do it. And it worked very well for me. And that worked through all of my life. I had no huge upheaval, no big problems. Things were, going along great. Moved through college, met a wonderful, caring man, got married, had kids, would just keep plugging along. And again, we know how to play the rules. We did things right. And we did. So we do have three daughters. Our youngest was brought to us to kind of help us learn a lot of things. And she's an absolute treasure. But it was challenging. There were things that weren't quite working for her that had worked for our two previous daughters. My training, I was an elementary school teacher before being a mom. So flashcards, doing all the things, colors and all that. And she was just a little bit more of a spitfire. She didn't fit into this traditional box. And very early, I could see trying to put her in that box was harming. So, but I had to guide her, right? Like I didn't want her to just go off, off the edge. So it was kind of like, when you're bowling and you put those things up, the bumpers,
Bummer.
so I needed to be the bumpers for her. So she needed to stay on a path of where she was going, but she needed a little more room to go left and right. And we needed to understand that about her and respect that. She's a really big feeling kid. She's 16 now, totally different than when she was, younger. But it really taught me a lot about um, she was unfiltered. Like she didn't have a lot of the things that a lot of us like, oh, I can't say that. Somebody might say something like she didn't have that. So we learned a lot about that. And so that was the first kind of test to show up for the real situation and in truth, that rather than what was expected. And it was hard. We had to change her school because it wasn't working for her. And this was a school I'd worked at, and I was the PTA president or treasurer and very involved. And my husband was like, we got to do what's right for her. And so that was probably the first time that we kind of went against the grain for the sake of the situation. And it was good and benefited. So yeah, as we kind of moved through life, things were going well and good. I felt happy and content. And then we hit our 40s and things slowed down a little bit, which I was like, okay, cool. And my husband was kind of like, oh, well, what's next? We did the marriage, we did the kids, we did this and that. And he's like, he had more ideas of what could be fun and interesting. And, you only live once and life is for experiences. And I do love that, but that's exhausting, right? That's hard. And so we got to some things where we had some differences, which was new for us. He had an idea during COVID to put our house on Airbnb and the five of us go on an RV trip around the United States with the dog and all the kids and teenager. And I'm thinking, well, that would be fun for like 10 minutes. But then, so he's got these big dreams and they're great. But at the same time, some of them so we had to figure out how to navigate that together. It was kind of that he was the gas, I was the brake. I don't want to always be the brake, but sometimes his gas was too much. So we really had to start communicating with each other and figuring out like, well, what's the piece of this that you want? What can I do? But I noticed for me, a lot of stuff would come up of like, okay, well, what is my issue with this certain thing? What was my fear of, maybe we started traveling more as a couple and prioritizing us and leaving the kids with the babysitter. And, it was like, wow, there's a part of me that I'd love to get away, right? That's important. But I was really struggling to step away from them, my responsibilities as a mom. And I realized there was a lot of stuff behind that, right? That was triggering of like, well, am I being selfish? Am I, a good enough mother to do that? Well, how do I be a good wife and fulfill myself, all that together? So it started to feel like a lot. And I decided to get some help and sorting that out, right? I just wanted some perspective. And I actually heard someone on a podcast, kind of like today, talking about her life and her situations. And it just really resonated. She was very authentic with the like, I like it all, but I don't know how to kind of feel good about it all the time. And so I looked her up from the podcast and made an appointment. It was through Zoom and just started having some conversations with her. And I'd always been introspective. I knew my Myers-Briggs, number, or what do you call it, type, in college and things like that. So I kind of like that, the horoscope of, some of it resonated, some
You
of it
remember
didn't.
what your Meyer-Briggs is?
I'm an INFJ, which is one of the most rare according to it, and it's complex. I'm also a Gemini, which is kind of that I've
Yeah.
got both sides.
You're
So
an
I can
introvert. I
be,
guess you maybe the introvert part is that you regenerate your energy away from people. Yeah. So like you're
absolutely,
very
but I
extra
love,
regenerating the energy. Yeah.
yes, yeah. And I had to learn that about myself. I am an introvert. I get exhausted in the groups. I have to, but I love meeting people and relationships. That lights me up. So that was another like, how do I balance this? So I will go full force. I have to step out of my shell to do it. And some people are shocked I'm an introvert. I'm like, oh no, this is all me all here, right? Like I'm gonna go home and probably chill out and maybe crash. In fact, yesterday was a recharge day. We'd been traveling for 3 days with family and friends and people, and it was awesome. And yesterday was the recharge. And I used to feel really bad about that, really guilty, like what's wrong with me? Because my husband is not that way. He recharges with the people. And then when I needed to step away, he was like, well, where are you going? What are you doing? You're my buddy. So yeah, learning a lot of those different pieces about myself with acceptance and understanding of what it was a huge piece. And so, yeah, the woman that I worked with, it was a big piece. And the biggest that she introduced me to was this platform called the Adult Chair. And I said, what is that? And she kind of gave me an overview of it. And I love the work with her because she's very much, here's some information. Go read this article, go look at this. Let's talk in 2 weeks and see how you feel. So it worked. And so I went, I looked up the Adult Chair. I listened to so Michelle Chalfant is the founder of it. And it's based upon Gassalt's, family, I forget the actual name. I do not have the psychology degree part, but I've got a lot of knowledge of it. But the family dynamics and
Family
so what
constellation.
the adult. Thank you. So it's a system of how we survive in our culture and in our life. And the idea is that we basically have these three chairs that we can choose or unknowingly be sitting in when we are operating, right? The goal is a healthy adult. A healthy adult has emotional intelligence, has understanding of what's going on, sees the bigger picture, leads with love and light, but also has boundaries. But there's also the inner child, the part of us that was formed in those beginning formative years of life, that we had the pure emotions, the joy, the sadness, the fear, the excitement, all of that. And that part is still with us inside of us at some point. Some of us are kind of in touch with that. Some of us are not. And, I'm thinking, what do you mean there's some little kid inside of me? What do you mean there's a little Jen, in there? That felt very kind of hokey for me in the beginning. But I've always tried to be curious and I've always tried to be open and find a piece that resonates and take that part rather than just throw, everything away. So I kind of thought, I'm like, I like roller coasters. When I'm on a roller coaster and we're going down that hill and I just get that full adrenaline, like that's my inner child, like so excited, right? Bubbles. When a kid has bubbles, rainbows, like, I could see those things. And like, yeah, it literally was, lighting me up with goosebumps, that energy. So that did make sense. And the third chair is the most fascinating, is the adolescent. And the adolescent's job is as we're growing older, we start to take in all this knowledge and information, all this data, right? The way someone looks at us, the tone we're received with, the look somebody gave us. And we try to take a story from that to make sure we're still okay in the world, right? So we'll see that, take it, and then, okay, well, what do I need to do to show up? What do I need to categorize? And in some ways, is extremely helpful. In a lot of ways, if it wasn't there, we wouldn't survive. It isn't extremely important. And I think it's important to know this isn't a bad part of ourself. This was a part that arose during a situation for a specific point and purpose in life. The problem is sometimes it's no longer needed, but we still have it. And one of my favorite examples is strangers. So when we're little, it's important for us to know the potential danger of a stranger, right? We do not want to be the type of toddler that walks off. We need this fear of people that I don't know could possibly harm us. But if we kept that belief as we went through life, into our teens and 20s and adulthood, and kind of had this understanding that we didn't update along the way, that would be awful. We'd never meet our next friend. We'd be scared to go to work. So that's one of those we have to update as we move along of, okay, I now have discernment. I didn't have that when I was a child. I didn't need it. I had a protector and things to keep me safe, but I have discernment now. I can now tell if the stranger looks friendly and safe, or I get bad vibes and negative energy, and that I need to avoid this stranger. So just like that example, there's a lot of those things. And the more I listened to Michelle's podcasts, which are on all different parts of our life, you kind of realize like, wow, I realized I had a lot of these adolescent parts. They were my protectors. They were fierce, pieces of myself that was making sure that the little part of me, the inner child, was safe, that wasn't being harmed by someone's bad look or a situation going on. And it creates the stories and beliefs. And I don't know if you've seen Inside Out 2 yet, but they did a phenomenal job of visually representing what I believe in most, the ideas of how we form our beliefs about ourselves. And it's complex. And if you're going to try to figure out what is the one belief, how does that work? Because on this hand, I'm a good person because I was kind, but over here I made a mistake, so I must be bad. And then it's just, all over the place. So the adult chair helps you understand all those pieces and then decide, do I want to update any of these beliefs? Did that belief serve me at a time, but I'm ready to release it and install a new belief within myself? And then I kind of became like a detective of like, well, shoot, what's inside there? What can I find when I look around? For me, it was really easy to do on my own. Again, I like that introspection and kind of that analysis part, but it's phenomenal to do it with somebody else who is not emotionally invested in the situation and kind of help guide you and point out things to you and just reflect back to you what you're seeing and feeling. And the more I did that, the more I kind of saw a pattern of I had this like fierce protection, this fierce, don't feel stupid, don't show up unprepared, just a lot of these things, which I think we all have, but mine were really strong to the point where it wasn't necessary. Like this is my family. I don't need to be protected from them, right? But I still had these parts showing up. And what was that about? So continued to do a little more. And I found the Enneagram and I'm a 2, I'm a helper. I love relationships. That's what lights me up. And, just as I started and I then discovered a highly sensitive person and the fact that there's literally more mirror neurons to be able to take in data of what's going on. And that serves a purpose, but it's exhausting. There's so much data coming in. So it's like, well, no wonder when I come back from a party, I'm like, that was a lot. And somebody else, my husband, is kind of like, yeah, it was fun. What are we going to do next type of thing? And I'd be able to tell you what so and so was wearing over there, and that person didn't like the food because I noticed that they put it down, and all of these things that I wasn't trying to consciously know. My body and my system does that. And then I had an epiphany that how does this serve me, right? What's the purpose here? And I realized, like, you know what? I think a long time ago, me, my ancestors, a version of me, we were the protectors. We were the ones that were on alert, ready to notice when the bushes over there were moving, meant there's danger in those bushes. We need to move quickly out of this area. And it's all still running inside of me in 2024. So I'm on alert. I'm looking for where's the fire exit? Where's our escape route? Is this person giving us a dirty look and they don't like us and we need to leave this conversation and go over there? All of this. And I was like, no wonder I'm tired. No wonder I'm exhausted. No wonder I'm not seeing the smiles or the joy or the love that was given from these people because my system was so focused and it was doing a phenomenal job, right? Like, thank you, but the bushes are not actually a threat. The dirty look from the guy driving next to me isn't really about me, probably. So that's where, it became that management system of like, well, what pieces do I want to keep? And what do I want to release? And that really was some internal work of like, hey, protector part, thank you. I'm so grateful for you. You must be exhausted. And let's have you, take a breath. Let's update you with some information that I'm not that, little person before that needed that protection when I was a certain age. And the work I do with clients, we can actually go back to that point and decide, do we want to release that? And at first, again, I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels hokey and, all that type of stuff. But it works and it feels right. And it feels that release of energy because it's stored information in our body in the form of energy. And it's up to us to manage it, to keep it, and what part we want to like bring up to the front and look at in front of us, and what part we do want to, release. So it's a gift to do that with clients. It's a gift to have them, be able to look and create a safe space for them to do. And I'm just a reflector. I am comfortable doing it because I've done it. I've been where so many of them have been. And I see the benefit of having a better perspective over it all and to figure out and to kind of manage what pieces and parts we want to show up when. So I now know my familiar stories. I've got a story that I'm not wanted, that I'm not good enough to be a part of a group. And I can go back to a memory from 3 years old because my brain is so good at remembering where a situation happened where I was not accepted on the swing set. And that made a big impression on me. My body took that in as like, ooh, remember this, and maybe we're not, maybe we need to show up a little quieter, a little smarter or funnier, some other way. And I was able to go back into that little memory and do a freeze frame shot of what was happening as an adult because I now know more about that situation. I now know the story of that 3-year-old who told me no, that her family was split up. She was very attached to the other girls on the swing, and me coming over was a threat to her security and safety. It could have been a puppy coming over. She would have felt that. Like it wasn't necessarily a message about me and my worth or my value. And I was able to tell myself then what was going on, which I know sounds a little, out there, but it was, oh, wow, I didn't see that side of it before. And now I have a completely different perspective on this situation. And so, that's just an example of going back and kind of grabbing one of those pieces to be able to do that. But the more you do it, the more they come up too, right? And sometimes that you can pick and choose. Like I'm okay having that belief. I have a friend who has some stuff and she's like, I don't want to go back behind that curtain. That was awful. And I get it, right? Like you got to do it when it feels right and good for you and you're in that state. But you don't have to go all the way back too. Even if you just recognize there were things that served you then and you're ready to want to release them, or no, those are kind of your, sensitive areas that if some of that comes up, I now know, some of those I'm like, oh, this is that thing in me that kind of pops up when I get anxious or a new group or something like that. And I find myself picking at like, the things around of like, oh, that car didn't go fast enough and now I'm going to be late. I'm like, this is me. I'm the one that's, feeling that nervous and I'm pushing it out on others in that way. So it's a powerful tool to use the adult chair within that. And whether it's working with a coach to kind of go and poke around and see what beliefs you have. And again, when you find a belief that's awesome, that's good, right? Like we're not always going back to just look at bad things and then operating from that adult, because even today something will happen and guess who pops up, one of those adolescent parts that serves a purpose to keep me safe in some way or and navigate through the situation that it thinks it needs to grab the, the driver's seat of the words that come out of my mouth. So you want those pieces. You don't really want them driving your bus. They're horrible drivers and they've got old information and things like that. So that's the adult chair. And when you're able to do that and see the things, like they served you, right? Like they weren't a negative thing. So the fact that I'm like overly sensitive or need a rest or things like that, it's like it's part of me and that's okay. And acceptance of that and myself has led to more acceptance in my relationships and the other people around me, so that it's you're less at war with everybody, and you can start to see, oh my gosh, they're not in their adult chair at the moment. They've got a part that's popped up and jumped up to them in front driving their bus, and I just happen to be the bystander here. So I'm gonna let them do that, right? Like I don't need to engage back and pick a fight or stand up or defend. And I've used it to help raise my daughters of, helping them be aware of what's popping up, for them and what are their beliefs about themselves and holding all that together, that paradox. It's really easy to go black and white and binary, but we miss so much in that living life that way. If we can, yeah, I'm all the parts. I'm helpful and great, and then sometimes, yeah, I'm too much and overwhelming, and all of those pieces together to live life. And in 2024, we've got a lot going on. There's a lot coming at us. There's a lot to manage, and I think the more that we can show up knowing all those parts of ourselves, honoring and caring for our inner child, making sure that healthy adult is got the resources that they need to show up, with the self-care and the pieces that work for them to be able to handle it all, the better that our own light shines through. And I've gotten some, clear messaging of like, I want people's light to shine through, right? Like everybody's got their thing, their gift, their, whatever. And it can't shine through if you got stuff in the way, and the stuff can be moved, it can be rearranged even if it's not gone totally, to kind of let that pass. So I keep having this visualization of people's lights wanting to come through and shine, and I in some ways sometimes can help them see what's blocking you. You can move it. It's totally up to you, and within your ability to do so, and how to keep it, over to the side so that your light is shining. And I think the more of us that do that, and the more of us that go in that direction, man, that's how we light the world. That's how we change with love. And that's when I get the goosebumps and I've drank the Kool-Aid. Like, yeah, I think that because you look at the other side, it's so much, it's fear, it's pain, it's all the human things we get, right? And when like, I get it. It's so easy to look at what could be and the wrong and the bad and the fearful. It really, really is. It's got some truth to it. So you can't just throw it away, right? Like, bad stuff happens to good people, even no matter what you do. But at the same time, there's more to the story than that. Can we make room for one little piece of, maybe part of it won't be bad? Where's the good part? And your brain's pretty cool, because as you show it something else, and you say, all right, yep, we got this here, but I want to look over here now at this rainbow, or this sunset, or this beautiful friendship I have, or this way I showed up well in my job, or to my neighbor or kid. You start putting your attention there, and it grows and it becomes beautiful. And the more you do, and you're able to hold that fear along with the other, good parts. And I've seen enough friends now go through things, one who lost a child, one who lost a husband, very quickly. And to me, those were the things of like, well, you don't recover from that, right? Like, my world would be shattered and over. They're still here. Their worlds they shattered. Don't get me wrong. And there was a lot of pain and a lot of awful days, but they're still here. They kept going. They figured out what that new version looked like. And that pain is with them, but so is the beauty and the joy of life with their other experiences, and they were able to, with time and a lot of grief and all of that, hold that together. And it's like, you see other people doing that. You hear the stories of other people and how they do what they do, and it's like, it's possible. That's the human condition, to have it all. And we've all got those same basic fears. Our details are different, but our stories are the same. And I'm the first to go through a buffet line when I'm hungry and we're all waiting for it to open. And in the same way, I'm open and willing to share my process. And yeah, that sometimes it's hard being a mom. And I also fiercely love my girls, that both. And I love being able to allow people to take that deep breath and kind of like, oh, good, we're going to be real here, right? Because the surface stuff just doesn't fulfill. And when we connect with other people and we see how they do it, and we take a little piece of that, I think it helps us all. So I enjoy being vulnerable, and sometimes I do have one of those emotional hangovers after, like, oh, I just showed everything to that person. But I really do believe that's how we do move forward and do good things. And I won't know how that affects other people. And that's okay, right? Like, you plant the seed. My friend who's an advocate, she plants the seed, and you water it when it comes back around, and then you just let it be and have faith. One of my favorite ones, you can have fear and faith both, or fear and happiness both require faith in something, right? Like, why not? The good parts, that it's going to work out. What's meant for me will find me. It might not be how I thought it was or on the time that I want it, but yeah. And then now I've opened up into a little bit more of divine timing and messaging, and some of those things that I think once we get the path clear, we can be open to receiving more, and our light gets brighter and stronger. And then it's like, ooh, what am I feeling moved to do? Am I honoring that? Am I listening to my inner light? Am I, so it's kind of those levels of building and growing, and we're all at different levels, and we're all exactly where we need to be. Again, even if your person next to you isn't where you are, it's serving some purpose. And so yeah, that's my story and the adult chair, and something that I'm passionate about sharing for those that are ready to listen or receive, and help them clear their ways to figure out how to be their best self.
No, thank you, Jen. Thank you so much for this beautiful, for sharing your story, for sharing this exceptional modality. I feel like everyone who comes on here has the medicine that has worked for them, the medicine that they're now offering to the world. And I think we always agree that everything is everything is valid and everything has its place, and we're all on our unique journeys, finding the guides at the time that are just right for us. what I really liked about hearing in your description, I truly, truly believe that it's it will meet you where you're ready to be met. And that is such a gift with a modality because not too much gets lifted. Also because that adolescent tends to protect us, right? So it will stop whenever it's too much, whenever we are pushing too much. And before we started recording, I shared with you how I, as a child, was left in a hospital for a week recovering from appendicitis from surgery because it was a flu epidemic and my mom was not allowed in the hospital. And I said to you, I never even considered this trauma, but it totally is. And as a result, I have been manifesting, well, not I have been manifesting consciously, but unconsciously, all of these situations have been coming up in my life to reinforce some of the beliefs and the behaviors, the personas that I took on, that I adapted as the Cat is somebody that is so self-sufficient. She takes care of herself. In fact, she can take care of somebody who is even sicker next to her if she's sick, and all of these things. So it's so interesting now that I have this awareness of the three chairs and the dynamics that get created to have a session with you and to dig into this and see how it limits me, because it absolutely does. It doesn't make space for somebody else to come in and help me. It 100% does not allow space for somebody to take care of me when I'm sick. Like, I am the person who prides herself. I have surgery. Next day, I'm up mopping the floors.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
C-section. Okay, I had a C-section. I'm walking home up the hill today. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't need a
Because when you were
wheelchair.
younger, yeah, because when you were younger and had to, that part came up, right? Like I said, they're amazing. Like we are so resourceful in that way. And that's a strong part. So anytime, in our body, like, oh, I know this. We've been sick before. Send in that part that is going to take care of. And we're here. We got it. We're doing all the things and everything. And yeah, to know. And we've actually had some conversation with these parts, which again, the first time I did that, I'm like, oh, okay, but it's true. It's an energy within you that is
Mm.
so strong and welling up to best serve you. But that's not needed today the way that it was then. It was needed, and we're
Actually, you're
grateful for
saying
it.
that, and I can actually feel it. I could feel it all around my solar plexus, right where like the surgery was on my stomach, right? And it's like my
Yeah.
personal power center, and I can literally feel it spiraling around and like being activated because it's in the awareness right now. So that's as somebody
And
who's
you can
to the body, it's
Yeah,
so.
you can thank it. And my favorite part,
um,
go to somebody who needs you right now because
yeah,
there is somebody who
yes.
is in pain, who is
It's
unhealthy, who
alone
needs to
too.
find that energy. So once we release it,
Yeah.
it goes and does its job. And you can think of it as like a little Tinkerbell, like you've done your job here. Thank
Yeah.
you. Now go serve somebody who needs you because it's not me right now. I'm
Yeah.
good. I got this.
So what are some of the other ones that you have seen come up that are kind of the common things? Because immediately when you were talking, I had this memory surface moving abroad as a 13-year-old or 12 or 13, walking into a classroom. The school was in a different language and feeling like such an outsider. And there was a boy behind me who would kick my chair because I was a different girl. I might not have had, my fashion wasn't as modern and Western as theirs. And I was this different girl that would have like my food wasn't exactly. And I would feel very alone and like an outcast. And I kind of magnetized together with the other, not other outcasts, but the kids who were different in a way, who were more accepting of different because they were different. And one of the and what's coming up right now is this is why I feel so like so on fire when I see the othering happen, because there's a part of me that's like, oh no, we don't other anyone, whether it's religion, whether it's skin color, whether it's belief systems, although I have been known to go head to head with people on belief system arguments before. I have been learning to be more accepting, as you, Jen, are truly one of the greatest inspirations and examples of someone who is that acceptance is who you are. So I thank you for being a teacher for me for that. But I could so clearly see that thing come up, that girl who was different and not accepted by others and never wants anyone to feel that way, right? That is teaching her children to
Absolutely.
not do that. And like she goes out of her way in a way. But she has also
Yeah,
seen
I think I
adults
have
felt
the
that way.
sister of yours. Yeah, I have that as well because I'm a fierce underdog, underprivileged. Like I become the advocate, even if I don't even relate as much. But again, because I've had that feeling, I know what it feels like, and I had a protector piece born up, in those moments, same as you, to do that. And again, that can be a great thing, right? Like you can advocate for it, you can. So we don't want to dismiss these pieces and parts. We want to understand them, and we want to make conscious choices about listening. And that's another part, because it's very easy to try to push it away, like, nope, don't need this anymore. They're going to get louder. Like it just kind of comes like, okay, fine, I'll sit it out and I'm going to get steam and I'm going to come back more. So for me and mine, like, again, once you start kind of opening this up, you're more in tune to receiving, this and being aware. So for me, one of my dad passed away last year. So I had a lot of grief and a lot of sadness, right? And you don't know quite when that's going to pop up. Anyone who's done that, you'd be doing something and like, oh, that's here now. And so I've had to make the choice of, do I want to bring this up right now? And I don't want to, go to the whole thing. But again, if I just push it away, it's like, hello, 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 it's impacting the rest of the thing I do for the day. So I do think it's important specifically for me. And I encourage others to like, just take those few minutes and drop in and like, what do you need to tell me? That healthy adult, you've got a teenagers, it's like, hello, what do you want to tell me? And they might tell you like, this is just like that time when we felt this and we didn't like that, so we don't want to do that, that type of. And
We do
the healthy
not want
adult
to
can be like,
feel that way again. We do not
don't
want
want
to
to feel,
feel
that's
that
the
way again.
whole, yep,
Yeah.
takes in all the information, categorizes it, and alerts you when it looks, familiar. Another analogy that I like to use is kind of like, smoke and fire, right? Like that can be dangerous. Our house burning down would be awful. I don't want a system that goes off when we have birthday candles, so that type of fire is contained and safe. And unless I go in, so think about, you've got this, fire or smoke detector going off, and you're just going to ignore it, right? Like you can't ignore it. It just drives you crazy until you go address it. And when you do, they're like, smoke, fire, we've been here before. And you, as a healthy adult, you're right. This is safe. This is a birthday situation. We're going to blow out the candles. This is not the big bad fire that we had years ago. So, yes, thank you for coming up. And we are going to keep an eye on the fire, right? Make sure it doesn't, catch on to something else. But, and that's that management piece. So that when you feel that sense of protection for others pop up, know that you're right. You're remembering how we felt like that. That is amazing that we can connect to other humans in that way. That is a gift. That is empathy. That is, what makes us human. And here's how we're going to contain it. Here's how we're going to support this group that's being, excluded, but not necessarily do it with this energy of, aggression to where it becomes a problem either for us or no one's listening to us anymore because we've gotten frantic and things like that. So it's that management. And then just one piece when you had talked about with things resonating at the right time, I always got it, but something recently really made that connection for me, because one of my things is like, I went into the adult chair coaching program to learn more. I didn't go in to be a coach. I loved it. I wanted to know more. And I also knew that I would meet amazing people that were also on that journey. And so when I signed up and did it, I didn't do it to change careers or become a coach. I just wanted to like bathe in it, with the people and the situation. And by the end of our session, I was just so moved to do it that I felt like I can't not. Like I feel like I found this great recipe or this really good thing on Amazon, and you're like, I just want people to know about it. Whether they use it or not is up to them. But this sense, but there was a part of me that's like, well, what is about me that's going to resonate? I went through the program with 47 amazing people, and there was a class before me and after, and there's all kinds of therapists and counselors, and I don't have a degree in this. Like, who's going to, value my words? And it was Tracy Chapman and Fast Car. That song came out when I was in, I don't know, high school, college, way back when, and I really didn't care for that song. Whoever the country guy was that re-released it almost identical, I really love that version. And it made me like, it hit me like it's the same music, it's the same song, but there's something about the energy that that country singer, and I apologize, I don't even know his name, the way he presented it matched me at that moment. And I now understand the song in a whole new way, even though I've heard it hundreds of times in my life. And so it was like, that's why I have to coach in the way that works for me. And I don't have to do it in a way that's like, okay, how do I like get these people to fall into my, my audience? No, it's just I do it the way that works for me, and it's going to resonate with whoever it's supposed to. And if it's not, that's okay. They're not supposed to get it now, or they're going to get it from somebody else later, or they got it last week, or whatever. So it was just funny with the fast car and cover bands and that whole thing of like, yeah, it's the same song, but I really like when this guy sings it.
Yeah. The frequency, it met you where you were at the time, at the right time, with the resonance that it was bringing. And I love that. I Jen, you need to share this story on Instagram stories alive or something, because that is gonna, like, so many people are gonna be like, oh my God, this is exactly, I've had this experience. It will, like, it's like a exclamation mark on this thing that we always talk about, that when we step into the role of being a guide, healer, whatever, facilitator, whatever, for others, there's so much of that imposter. There's so much of that, well, why me? Why would somebody, especially when you have the unaddressed adolescent pieces, right? Where we have
Yeah.
been rejected, where we have unworthiness of some sorts. And I always tell my clients and my students that we have this unique soul frequency that we infuse everything with, right? And that the people who are meant to work with us, to receive from us, are coming to us because there is something, they can't even explain it, right? Like, there is something, just like the country singer's voice had something that Tracy Chapman didn't at that moment. And especially in that moment back in high school. And there might be some, memories attached to the high school thing, like hearing him back then. So it's all like, it's such a complex spider web of all the things, such
Yeah.
a complex tapestry, but somehow we are all finding each other and finding the exact medicines that we need to not just put band-aids on ourselves, but to free ourselves. Because while you're talking about it, all I'm seeing is like, I feel lighter, I feel freer, like I feel like I have tools to regulate myself, the parts that are maybe trying to get me out of control. Like when you were talking about the driving example, I'm like, oh yeah, driving in Dubai. Oh, that's a very humbling experience. If you have that, if you ever feel in a rush, or yeah, and giving somebody the tools to manage those moments, right? To get present within themselves, in with all the crazy surrounding, and to recognize what needs to be, taking that time out to address what needs to be, what wants to be present, what wants to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And you asked about parts. One of the biggest parts, and I mean, we could have a whole other conversation on it. And I've, had friends do workshops, is the inner critic. Our inner critic is a part that we all have in some way, shape, or form. And, I kind of think of it as, this overall, like, all right, how are you gonna, let's keep you from messing this up, right? Like let's keep you. So it's not as helpful, even though it really is trying to keep us in line of what it thinks it needs to do. But meeting your inner critic is a humbling experience because it's got evidence of truth, right? It's not making stuff up. It's, yeah, I got this list of all these things that you messed up and all these times that you didn't do it right. And it's real. And it is hard to look at that and the shame and all of that with it and say, yes, and I'm more than just that. And I learned from those things or, whatever. So that is a big, big piece. And then just one other thing I wanted to mention, on the frequency of finding the right people. There are multiple adult chair coaches, and most of them do sessions remotely through Zoom, some are in person. So, I love to share, like, if it does resonate with you, but like my frequency doesn't, go find more, right? Like they're out there and they're there and they're listed on a web page. And so yeah, and even just therapy in general, I've been a very advocate, the whole idea of, I'm a life coach, right? And I call it therapeutic because we do go back a little bit. We don't live in that world, but we kind of go there, visit it, and bring it forward. Um, but to me, it's like a personal trainer. If I want to get into shape, how to run, I know how to do jumping jacks, I know how to, whatever. But if I go to the gym and I have that personal trainer there saying, you want your arms to look good for the summer? Let me show you the specific things that are going to make it worth your while, the fastest way for you to get there. And I'm going to be there along the way to kind of be like, nope, hold your arm a little bit to the more, angle, and you're going to get a bigger, results from that. So to me, that life coaching therapy part, it's there. I personally use it when I feel myself getting a little wonky or I want some perspective on that, but it doesn't have to be to fix something broken. And I love that as we're moving through the ascension in our society and humanity, that we're understanding the value of being reflected by somebody. And another thing I say is, like, I'm somewhere between going to have coffee with a really good friend where you're gonna like get past that. I'm fine, but I'm not, a licensed, therapist who's going to go deep, dark, and give diagnoses and things like that. It's kind of that in between space that can do a lot for a lot of people that are kind of in that in between
Yeah,
space.
kind of in between. And you mentioned our society moving through this expansion spiral, all of us going individually and as a society. And I do believe that the inner critic, that judge of self and judge of others, is one of the biggest things that we're here to move through and transcend, but because it's based on that separation. It's based on the categorizing who's better, who is, putting the opposites, right? And
Yeah.
the inner critic is short on love in some way or another. It's like
Yes.
it feels unworthy, and it's trying to make maybe somebody else look worse so that they can feel better about themselves, and all of these things. And as you were talking about it, I was like, oh, this is why when I think of Jen, I think of acceptance, because she is very intimately familiar with her own inner inner critic, and she sees a lot of the other people's inner critics come out. And we always think of like judgment, acceptance as being the two, the polar opposites, right? It's like if you can release that judgment and release that criticism of self and others, you gain compassion and you gain acceptance and gain more heart qualities. You move into the heart from the one that's keeping a tally chart of all the things, of all the
And it
things.
starts with ourself. I mean,
Right.
it's just our own ability to. There was a big epiphany during one of my, workshops, to the point where I had to excuse myself and text my children. I'm like, to be clear, there's nothing you can do for me to love you any more or less. My love for
Oh,
you is completely unconditional and very separate from my feelings about the ways that you're doing life,
mm,
right? Like, the value that you have is solid. And I didn't even realize that I, for a long time, was taking, my parents' approval as love, and those are two different frequencies. And I wanted to make sure they knew that. And just that inherent love of being worthy, of being divine, outside of the way that we show up. Yes, that impacts who we are as people within our society, but like I believe that we've got that. And I wasn't raised with religion, but I see this beautiful spirit language coming into. And one of my friends who was, and I was, a few months ago kind of going, she goes, yeah, that's God. That's what I'm like, oh no, I saw God as like this kind of almost scary guy with his son that had the, crucifix, like my versions of that were very different. And so this, divine beauty and acceptance of ourselves and, being able to, and I just see it all more of like, oh, I get trying to explain it all with some stories and, things in that way. But it's resonated with me on that different level of, yeah, the acceptance. And then once you do it within yourself, and it's not all the time, like I'm still triggered. I still have an inner critic. I still like all the pieces are there, but I now know who's here a little more than I did years ago, and I'm able to, manage it like a big conference room of like, and then half the time it's like, oh, it's here today. Oh, grief is here. Okay, well, let's give grief, a few minutes so we can do its thing and then move out of the way because I've also got excitement. We got a fun day planned, and that inner child is like, when are we going to do this? And so it's a party up there, right? And I'm the director.
Yeah, and I find that they usually show up when we are not managing our energy, right? When we are, and it might be physically
Yeah,
we're tired. It might be that we, as introverts, were in a situation in a concert, and that's, it's so it's this beautiful awareness that it puts us in. And if we can also learn tools to manage our energy. Maybe it's instead of having a coffee that's going to trigger us even more, having something, like a extra glass of water and a fruit or something, and it's creating those strategies to navigate through life with more ease, I guess, because it's
absolutely. And that
like you said,
perfectly sums it up
we
because
are in 24, we live in 2024, and I was like, oh yeah, and it's not whether you're looking at astrology, whether you're turning your TV on to look at what's happening, on the political channels, wherever you're looking, it's not easing up. It's not getting all rainbows and sunshine and butterflies like instantly, right? We still
right.
have some stuff to work through, but it always starts with ourselves, with that, with yeah.
Yeah. And our bodies weren't designed to be living at this level of stress, right? Like, our
No.
bodies are not catching up as fast as our environment is. We've still got, wisdom teeth that we don't use and a tailbone, so it's like
Yeah.
you think about how slowly, our bodies evolve in this. Our brains are fascinating though. And they, yes, like you said, oh, we're tired, we're hungry, we don't have as much strength. I always think of it like this command center. We're sending in anger, the hangry is here. And again, Inside Out, I think, did a great job, with all that. But yes, the more I know, these are the things that keep me in my healthy adult chair self, good sleep, meditation, checking in with a friend, avoiding things that often get me irritated and triggering. But then that was even hard, right? Because I want to help, I want to do a good thing. So now I know, oh, that's where boundaries come in. I can do a little bit and then I need to stop and pull myself
Yeah,
back so
well,
that
I
I
was
don't get
gonna ask
myself.
you about boundaries because that is such a huge thing for so many of us that have that adolescent that is the protector, that is the make everyone happy, that is, and as we heal that, boundaries become so important. Is that something that comes up with
Absolutely.
your clients, especially mothers?
Oh yeah. I've had a lot of conversations with women, my age, and it's interesting for some of us. I think it kind of coincide with, parenting and becoming a little more remote of a job. But recently I've had some good conversations with women who have felt this since the beginning of motherhood, and that struggle to want independence, to want outside activities, but also be present for their kids, be involved. And I started thinking about it, we all have different kids, right? Like some of us have the ones that need the 24/7, and some are like, yeah, they're kind of on cruise control. And then our own nervous systems are different of what we need. Our partners are different, our situations. So reconciling that. And I love, and I even caught myself judging, a one who was like, had said they were going to all these different concerts, right? This mom that I know. And I was like, away a lot, aren't you? Don't is your child, and I was like, what am I doing? I don't have the belief that to be a good mom, you self-sacrifice everything. That is that is the opposite of what I think it needs to be, a good mom. And here I am, putting that because I know there's times I have felt selfish for going to a concert or vacation or telling my kids, it's 7:30, I'm done for the night. If you really need me, knock on my door, but I need, to rest and recharge and things like that. So absolutely. And the more we reconcile and realize, like, so what is the belief we have if we take time for ourselves? What have we picked up or, received as messaging? Do we want that belief? Are we going to be okay if we say I am, knowing we're going to have somebody like our mom or even our husband or another friend have that sense of that's not what you're supposed to do as a mother. So it's a lot, and boundaries are incredibly helpful and incredibly difficult at times.
Yeah, boundaries. And I'm also hearing like writing your own story, because there is rewriting your stories and writing your story moving forward, because motherhood is a big part of our lives as mothers, but there's still another 30, 40, 50 years ahead, right? So how do we want to design our lives moving forward with the most joy or the most inner peace or whatever is the thing that we really desire? And I think you are a wonderful guide, helping others find that, fine tune that connection, and cleanse the inner world, and find the whatever their expression is of their best, most fulfilling life.
Yeah, it is up to us, right?
Mm.
We're not waiting on anybody to do this for us, and we have the responsibility to know what it is, to be true to that, to serve that, to put ourselves in situations, to have partners that do, and then to sit with the discomfort when we feel it. That yesterday was my recharge day, and I had that, like, you should be doing something, and I was like, I that discomfort, that little voice of that, I have to hear it and say no, because like you said, I owe it to myself to be true. And one of the best ways that has helped me has been to find models, to contact and connect with other women authentically, to hear their stories, how they do it, and to get bits and pieces. I don't know that there's anybody that I would just say, okay, yes, I'm going to totally take that. But I'm like, huh, she does this and this works for her. I wonder if that would work for me. I wonder if I could, maybe she goes to a concert every month. I wonder if I went to one every, 3 months, because I love live music and it lights me up and the energy is so fun. I wonder what that would be like. So that is one of the reasons I love to connect with people and hear their story and ask with an openness, almost like show me your buffet and then I'll pick the pieces that I want to try to build my own. And it is my job to build my own. It's my daughter's job to build hers. And that's that's the important part of again being in alignment with that inner life and speaking from your heart that is fulfilled by the things you're doing for yourself. It's all cyclical, and we have a lot more power than we realize, and a lot more ability to shape that. It doesn't always feel comfortable, and it doesn't always feel, again, if we're being approved, from that. So it can feel a little wonky, but man, when you're in alignment, it just it ripples through you. You can just literally feel it, and it helps some of the other that don't agree with it. It's like, that's too bad because this feels amazing. So
Yeah. Oh, amen to that. Yeah, when we are in that, it's almost like the stream is open and we are connected, and your friend called it God. God is not the word that you connect with. I really like the word life. Like all of life just flows through us and out into the world. And that's when we can be our best selves, best mothers, best coaches, best whatever that version is for us, right? Whatever that looks like for us. Again, reminding everyone, it's not a competition. Nobody's measuring. Nobody is looking up. Where are you higher than me? No, we're in a different paradigm. We're entering into a different paradigm. And I think as women, I love what you said, with the role models of who is taking a little bit from everybody and seeing, oh, let me try this on, and seeing what fits into what is for you, what is in for your life, what is, yeah, I think that's beautiful. Oh, Jen, this was so amazing. So amazing. Where can people find you? Social media, and I'll include everything in the show notes, but where can people find you and how can they work with you? One-on-one sessions? What are you offering right now?
Yeah, so I like to process things, and I do that often through writing. So I do have an Instagram account. It is Balance and Life Coaching. Excuse me, I'm so bad at it. Like the sales part is not my forte. Like I said, I'm just trying to be me. But I journal a lot through Instagram at Balance and Life Coaching. And it's things that pop up for me. And I try to kind of show a bit of how I go through that using, the adult chair model. So that's the number one way. I do work with clients one on one. That's one of my favorite things to do because you can really get in deep. I'm actually looking to lead a women's circle here where I live in Greenville, South Carolina in person, trying to get some of those logistics. But I do have a website, there's scheduling through there. And yeah, the adultchair.com has some amazing resources. Michelle's got fabulous podcasts. She does do weekend retreats. There's lots of coaches on there. So if that's something that resonates as well, then that would be helpful.
Jen, you are so kind and so generous and so, again, accepting. I'd like to highlight that one again. It's like, those exercises in coaching programs where you find your I am, like I am creativity or I am whatever. When I think of Jen, I always think of I am acceptance. Like I just truly think it's this, and it comes with a lot of generosity and with a lot of love. So I thank you for being you. I thank you for being heart powered. I thank you for coming today, for sharing your gifts. And yes, give Jen a follow on Instagram. It's in the show notes, and schedule a session with her. And if you're in Greenville, have contact Jen for the circles. And hopefully she organizes some circles online as well, because I think a lot of women will resonate with your energy, with your words, with your process. And yeah. So thank you. Thank you, Jen, for being here. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Kat, for the opportunity. And I've learned so much through the groups and the women that you've, collected. That's again one of my favorite parts. So I never know what I'm going to learn, but it's fascinating, and it just adds more to all of it, the expansion.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please review, rate, and subscribe. Until next time, much love.